Kendrick Lamar is the best rapper alive. There is simply no debate there to be had. Kendrick has some of the best rapping ability out of anyone, and he also has the deepest and most emotional lyrics out of any rapper I have heard. His views on politics, socioeconomics, grief, death, power, money, and sex have always birthed the rawest and most fascinating lyrics we have ever gotten out of rap. I don't want to waste too much time with the intro because today I'm here to rank every Kendrick album, excluding, of course, the Black Panther album and Overly Dedicated, because I don't think anyone cares about what I have to say about those two albums.
We want you to rate your album.
Okay.
Alrighty, which one is your favorite album? From Section 80 on?
Section 80 on that.
This being the best.
Damn is the best?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Ain't nobody praying for me.
Okay, now, Damn is a good album. I really do enjoy it. It has some really heart-wrenchingly honest songs with pretty solid production as well, but this album as a whole is easily one of his worst. Songs like Humble, Love, and DNA, while listenable, are very not Kendrick. You can tell he is trying to make a radio hit, and while that's okay, it means a definite drop in the songwriting. Sure, there are some fun, braggadocious lyrics on those songs, but who wants to listen to a Kendrick song for braggadocious lyrics? I'm still not gonna act like there aren't any really good songs on the album though. Fear is an amazing spectacle of a song with a chill beat and a dark, broody mood, and even though it's not one of my absolute favorites, I can appreciate it for what it is. The song features lyrics reminiscent to The Blacker the Berry, which is one of my personal favorite Kendrick tracks ever. The song Feel is another one of my favorites on the album, with a great slowed beat and sample on the song that feels jazzy and fresh enough to be on To Pimp a Butterfly, along with the poetic and hard-hitting lyrics as well. XXX with U2 is an amazing and very modern-sounding twist on a throwback to an older-feeling Kendrick song. A song like Duckworth brings us back to the classic Kendrick storytelling, most notable on Section 80 and Good Kid, Mad City, with the incredible story of Kendrick's dad and Top Dog meeting so long ago. The album as a whole doesn't have the necessary social commentary we usually get from a Kendrick LP, and overall the album just feels scattered. Kendrick Lamar is a very conceptual thinker, but with Damn, there is really no flow going throughout the project, and some tracks give you tonal whiplash from one to another. You will have a laid-back and insanely smooth song like Pride that, once again, is an amazing throwback song on the album, and then it'll be followed up with the very loud, in-your-face, and shallow Humble. There is really just little consistency on this album, and for that I have to place it low on the list. But I still want to stress that this is a solid and very entertaining album. The album overall is probably like a 7 out of 10. Here's a track list ranking along with individual ratings for each song. Sorry for the hot take about DNA.
Fancy girls on Long Beach Boulevard.
Yeah, I know this is an easy low pick, but I've got to be honest here. This album is a great show of potential for Kendrick, but I don't go back to it as frequently as most of his other albums. The album really does feel like more classic rap with its simple samples, low production, and shallow lyrics. Most of the songs are fun to listen to and have nice features and chiller lyrics, but the songs range from really fun to incredibly boring. Even so, the album does have consistently returning themes and concepts about Keisha and Tammy's lives with their struggles. The thing that seems to be almost entirely missing here, though, is jazz. I know that jazz elements really started to be a priority around the To Pimp a Butterfly era, but seeing almost none of it on a Kendrick album is pretty strange. The album is extremely raw and sometimes angry, but I think that can work to the album's benefit. It helps the album set itself apart from any other Kendrick project you could listen to. Even if I will return to Damn probably more than Section 80, I place this album above Damn because of its higher level of concept and execution, how influential it turned out to be over the years, and because of how much more raw this feels than most of his projects. Here's a track list ranking, and this one is an even 7 out of 10.
That's what the Asian said, I needed divine intervention was his religion, and I was surprised.
Untitled Unmastered is a strange Kendrick album for several obvious reasons. For one thing, it is basically just some songs that didn't make the cut of To Pimp a Butterfly, but while I think that is for the better that they weren't on there, this album is absolutely insane in the best way. This album even has some of my all-time favorite songs from Kendrick. Untitled 3 is a feat of musicality with one of Kendrick's most jazzy and funky beats, along with great flows and lyrics that further explain his views on institutionalized racism. The incredible 3 parts of Untitled 7 are all parts I revisit to this day because of how many different sounds he incorporates, and the dark, moody, and mysterious sound effects of Untitled 2 are almost unmatched. I also love his unhinged vocals on that song. Much of this album is some of Kendrick's best work, and even though these songs are a bit scattered from one to another as far as tone and sound goes, that is part of what keeps the album so interesting. This is by no means Kendrick's best album because it really is a compilation of individual songs rather than a cohesive project like most of his other albums. But that being said, these are some of Kendrick's all-time best songs, and I really do mean that. It just can't be too high because of its short length and overall lack of intertwining themes or messages. Here's a track list ranking, and this is an easy 8 out of 10.
Early morning wake ups, practicing on day offs, tough love, bottled up, no chaser.
Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is probably the most inconsistent Kendrick Lamar album, with some of his most ferocious bangers with insane production like N95, Mr. Morale, Die Hard, and We Cry Together, but then you have beautiful songs like Father Time, United in Grief, and Worldwide Steppers that have some of Kendrick's most powerful lyrics and messages to date. The album, unfortunately, is still only number 3 because it is a bit of a mess because of how inconsistent it is, and I'm not talking about the tone switches because I think the album conceptually flows very well. I'm just talking about song quality. Although I don't think any of the songs are bad, some of them do feel a little corny just with the features and production. For example, the song Purple Hearts has a terrible melody with a clunky beat and Kendrick just repeating "yeah baby" for almost 16 lines in total. The 2 interludes in the album, Rich and Savior, add very little to the album and feel like Kendrick kind of experimenting instead of trying to make great music, with pretty weak features from Baby Keem on Savior interlude and Kodak Black and Sampha on Rich interlude. The storytelling is nothing we haven't seen before and are just kind of forgettable on the album. I will say the juxtaposition between messages on the 2 parts of the album is incredible, where on the first side of the record, Kendrick talks a lot about materialistic behavior, egocentrism, and constant hatred-fueled confrontations. The second side of the record talks about self-pride, peace, and the power of uniting in darkness, which the first song on the album already addresses. I mean, this concept is just executed so perfectly. The album really does come full circle by the end, and for that I have to place it as high as it is for pure concept and execution alone. This is one of the best albums conceptually I've ever listened to, and it's not like the songs weren't incredible too. So, here's a track list ranking. This is our first 9 out of 10.
I pray my dick get big as the Eiffel Tower, so I can fuck the world for 72 hours.
Good Kid, Mad City is widely regarded to be one of the best rap albums of all time, and yeah, I definitely agree. The album has the second shortest track list with only 13 songs if you count the Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe remix, and because of that shorter runtime, there are fewer opportunities for lame tracks, and trust me, there are absolutely none on this album. The lyrics on this project are always on point, and for this album at least, much of the lyrics are very introspective of Kendrick himself. One of the things I love about this album is that you could take it in on the surface level and just have a great listening time with the unusual flows and lush instrumentals on all of the songs on the album and enjoy it purely off of how it sounds. But even when you dig just a tiny bit deeper, you find so much to reflect on in the experience. Like take a song like Backseat Freestyle, for example, a very fun song that contains constant braggadocious lyrics that are incredibly shallow and almost funny. A song that you would rap while hanging out with your friends and having a great time. But then if you really take in all that the album's trying to give to you, you can understand why this song is the way it is. The track right before Backseat Freestyle, Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, is like a preface to the album about his relationship with the music industry and the shallowness of most people in it. How they all want to have creative control but ultimately come out of it disappointed and hungry for more. The song sums up what seems to be an ongoing theme of peer pressure and change that is occurring in Kendrick's life because of new people he is meeting. But Once you read more into Backseat Freestyle, you figure out that Kendrick is in the backseat of his friend's car and he's trying to be as loud and obnoxious as they are being to fit in. The very next song, The Art of Peer Pressure, talks about how Kendrick wasn't the same as he usually is when he's around his friends, and he would do things like rob houses or take drugs. There are moments like this all around the album. Another example is the song Shireen, aka Master Splinter's daughter, at the beginning of the album, where Kendrick talks briefly about Shireen, the girl he has a crush on. But later on Poetic Justice, Kendrick is basically living in a fantasy with Shireen. Later on the track, when he gets jumped by two of her cousins, Kendrick is reminded of the harsh realities that lie beyond the surface. The album, in my opinion, seems to be about how Kendrick feels about his city and the truths he wants to express, both good and bad, about where he came from and where he is headed. This, in my opinion, is Kendrick's darkest album, with a bleak atmosphere throughout most of the songs, namely on Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, Swimming Pools, Art of Peer Pressure, and even Money Trees, which is one of Kendrick's most popular songs ever. Some of the sounds feel a little dated. For example, as much as I love Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe's production, it hasn't aged perfectly well with some clunky instrumentation here and there. You will find this as well in more minor terms all throughout the album, like for example the song Mad City, that used to feel timeless and perfect, has gotten a little stale over the years with its overly simplistic keys. Although I find myself revisiting the #1 spot on this list a lot more than this album, Good Kid Mad City is still one of the best albums of all time, and I love it very much. Here's a track list ranking, and this is a 10 out of 10.
I'm fucked up, homie, you fucked up, but if God got us, then we gon' be alright.
To Pimp a Butterfly is by far the most common #1 pick for a Kendrick Lamar ranking, and I can totally see why, because I agree. This is definitely the best Kendrick album by a long margin. Let's start with the storytelling, shall we? There is a poem Kendrick repeats throughout the album, starting at the end of King Kunta. Between every 1 or 2 songs, he will repeat what he had already said, and then read one more line of the poem. And the genius of this is how every line of the poem ties in so perfectly with the next song. Sure, he could just say the whole poem once at the beginning or at the end, but by sort of saying it bit by bit, it slowly reveals more and more about the characters that Kendrick is talking about, but it also serves as a great transition between songs. Like, take this part of the album for example. This is at the end of These Walls and the beginning of You.
I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence. Sometimes I did the same, abusing my power full of resentment that turned into a deep depression. Found myself screaming in the hotel room.
There are many instances where the poem conveys most of his thoughts in a song, and the song itself just digs a bit further into the concept of that line of the poem, while being beautiful on the ears as well. This album isn't just a great story or concept, because most of the songs land themselves in my top 50 favorite songs ever, just because of how amazing they sound. Take for example the incredibly smooth and re-listenable These Walls, with amazing features from Anna Wise on the beginning of the track that leads perfectly into the chorus with the unique vocals of Bayalal and the fantastic jazzy instrumentation of one of my favorite R&B artists, Thundercat. The song is one I will play on repeat constantly just for how amazing the production and rapping is. But just like Good Kid Mad City, once you start to peel back the layers, you get even more out of the track. The song These Walls is actually about how Kendrick is having sex with a woman who has children with a man who is currently in jail for killing one of Kendrick's friends. The song is about how he views this as a revenge for his dead friend, but also how he has guilt for abusing his power and fame for such a ridiculous revenge. The song King Kunta on the surface is a very accessible and peppy pop rap song, but once again, the song's meaning is Kendrick diving into the fictional character of King Kunta, an 18th century African being captured in his adolescence and being sold into slavery. Much of the album talks about black oppression and institutionalized racism in different periods of time. The song The Blacker the Berry is one of the rawest and hardest hitting flows we have ever gotten from rap, with Kendrick expressing how he honestly feels about white Americans trying to shape black identity. The song is one of the clearest examples of his lyrics. Throughout the album, when he is telling a story or playing a character, he will use euphemisms and metaphors to tell the story in an interesting and poetic way, but when he is creating a nationwide protest song like All Right, or an emotional stream of consciousness like The Blacker the Berry, he wants to be as clear as possible possible so that we can all hear his messages. On the first track, Wesley's Theory, he is playing basically two different characters, one being a successful artist that doesn't know what to do with the money he has, one being a person exploiting the successful artist for how much money he can make, but also how ignorant of the industry and money-making capability he is. The song talks about how having such success comes with its fair share of dark moments and risks. The album addresses so many different topics, but because of the album's smooth transitions and incredible rapping and instrumentation, the songs never fall flat. This is one of the best albums ever made, possibly the best album period, and I will continue to think that for its timeless sound, messages, and storytelling. 10 out of 10. Here's a tracklist ranking, although I don't think it matters because I love almost all of these songs equally. Well everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you weren't too upset about my placement of Damn. Please place your Please tell me your rankings in the comments section down below, and have a great day.